Elias lived alone in a small house at the edge of town. People often said his home looked peaceful, even comforting, with its soft lights in the evening and quiet garden in the back. Anyone walking past his window at night would think he enjoyed a simple, calm life. But what they could never know was that the silence inside Elias's house wasn't peaceful at all. It was heavy. It was suffocating. It was a silence that felt alive. Elias had grown up around noise. His parents argued constantly, doors slammed, voices rose. Every day felt like walking through a storm. At 8 years old, he promised himself that when he grew up, he would create a home with no shouting, no chaos, no conflict. He believed silence was safety. Silence was control. Silence was peace. So, when he moved into his own house as an adult, he embraced quiet like a lifeline. He never played music. He kept the TV off. He avoided phone calls. He rarely invited people over. He filled his days with simple routines and his nights with stillness. But over the years, something strange happened. The silence stopped feeling safe. It started feeling aware. At first, he noticed the small things, how the air seemed heavier at night, how walking from one room to another felt like stepping into different moods, how some corners of the house felt colder, even when the heater was on, how he would sometimes wake up at 3 a.m. with a sudden feeling that someone had called his name softly from far away. He told himself it was stress, fatigue, imagination, but the silence grew thicker, pressing against him like a weight on his chest. One evening, after a particularly long and lonely day, Elias sat at the kitchen table eating dinner by himself. He chewed slowly, listening to nothing. But, as he listened, he realized the nothing didn't feel empty. It felt full, like something was hiding inside the quiet. He put down his fork. "Why does it feel like you're watching me?" he whispered to the empty room. The silence answered with more silence, yet it felt like a response. Elias pushed the chair back, suddenly uncomfortable. He tried to shake the feeling off, but the moment he stepped into the hallway, the air grew colder. A shiver crawled down his spine. He turned on the light, but even with brightness, the hallway felt unnatural, as if the shadows refused to leave. He walked into the living room and froze. Something was different. The room looked exactly the same, but he felt a presence. Not a ghostly figure or a monster, something far more familiar, something that lived inside him for years but had never spoken aloud. The silence thickened until Elias could barely breathe, and then it spoke, not out loud, not with a voice, but with a feeling so clear it felt like words carved into his mind. "I've been waiting for you." Elias stumbled backward, grabbing the edge of the couch. "What is this?" he whispered. The silence pressed closer, almost like a shape forming from the air itself. It wasn't a spirit. It wasn't a hallucination. It was a presence built from everything Elias refused to acknowledge. Fear gripped his throat. "Who are you?" The silence answered again through feeling, not sound. "I am everything you never said." Elias's breath hitched. "What do you mean?" The silence shifted, filling the room, circling him like a memory he couldn't escape. "I am the words you swallowed, the cries you smothered, the anger you never expressed, the sadness you hid, the loneliness you buried. You wanted silence. So I became your silence." Elias shook his head. No, I just wanted peace. You wanted absence." The silence replied. "Absence of conflict, absence of sound, absence of pain. But silence built from avoidance is not peace. It is a prison." Elias felt something inside him crack. Images flashed through his mind, his parents shouting, him hiding in corners, him learning to disappear so he wouldn't get in the way. He had built his entire life around avoiding chaos, but in doing so, he had avoided himself. He whispered, "What do you want from me?" The silence pulsed gently. To be heard. Elias's throat tightened. "I don't understand." "You ran from noise," the silence continued, "because noise hurt you. But in running, you ran from your own voice too." Elias felt tears forming. "My voice doesn't matter. That," the silence replied, "is the lie that created me." Elias sank to the floor, hands trembling. I thought if I stayed quiet, things would get better. But silence was the very thing that hurt you, the presence said. You never spoke your fear. You never spoke your pain. You never spoke your truth. You locked everything inside. And the longer you stayed silent, the bigger I became. Elias looked up at the ceiling, tears spilling. I don't know how to speak. The silence softened around him, almost like a hand resting on his shoulder. Start small. Elias closed his eyes and let himself feel everything he had pushed away for decades: the fear of conflict, the loneliness of growing up unheard, the exhaustion of always keeping the peace, the longing for connection, the ache of never expressing himself. The silence changed. It grew warmer, less suffocating, more human. Elias whispered, "I'm tired, so tired." The silence responded like a sigh of relief. "You finally said something." Elias cried harder, letting out sounds he hadn't made since he was a child, raw, trembling, real. And with every tear, every exhale, every small expression of truth, the silence loosened its hold. He felt something releasing inside him. The silence spoke one last time, gentle as breath. "You don't need me anymore." Elias opened his eyes. The room felt lighter. The air felt softer. The house felt like a home again. Not because the silence was gone, but because it was finally honest silence, not the kind that hides things, but the kind that makes space for them. Elias placed his hand on his chest and whispered, "I hear me now." And the silence, for the first time in his life, felt like peace.